Welcome back to the podcast, Heal Without Harm. My name is Dr. Clayton Dir, physical therapist and the one bringing you the truth about the medical system. Today, I want to talk to you about something that surprised me, a research study that surprised me, but one that I took full advantage of over these last 4 days, and I did the number one thing you can possibly do for longevity for 4 days straight, and it ended with an amazing Father's Day. You may be thinking, did he go to some retreat? Did he take a new supplement? Did he fast for 4 days? What was he taking or what was he doing to make sure that he is doing the best he can for longevity? Well, as you may know, I'm constantly reading research about longevity, chronic disease, nutrition, exercise, and all the things we typically associate with health. And I say that I recently came across it. It's more that I recently rediscovered it. Is one of the longest running studies ever conducted on human beings. Naturally, you would assume that the big takeaway would be something about diet, exercise, genetics, or maybe some lifestyle habit. But that's not what this research study found. What this research study found is that the strongest predictor of living a longer, healthier, and happier life was not a supplement. It also was not a medication. It wasn't even any biohack, no hydrogen water, PEMF mat, sauna, cold plunge. It was none of that. It was the quality of a person's relationships. Now, I said quality, not quantity. It's not, do you have 10, 20, 30 relationships? It's what is the quality of whatever number of relationships you have. And that's why I told you over the last 4 days, I was pouring into this because I was on a family trip to the lake where we had little to no cell service. We were either with each other, like playing games, reading, watching a show, or we were out on the lake on the boat doing new and fun things together. We were jumping off cliffs, we were skiing, we were teaching kiddos how to ski. It was all the different stuff outside, building relationships. I want you to let that sink in for a moment because this puts a lot more control in your hands than you think. See, this study, known as the Harvard Study of Adult Development, it began back in 1938. It is nearly 100 years old at this point, and it is still going on. It followed participants for decades. The research tracked their health, careers, families, successes, failures, and overall well-being throughout their entire lives. And after all those years, one conclusion rose to the top. People with stronger and healthier relationships tended to live longer and age even better. Not necessarily people with the most friends or the most popular, and still not even the wealthiest. Well, depends on what you define as wealthy, but not the ones with the most money. The people with the most meaningful connections, people with meaningful connections, the people who had others say they could rely on, the people who felt supported. Like, let's take this into account. When you get older, you need to be able to know that if something happened, you would have someone to rely on, right? You would have to think, would someone be able to help me? Can I ask someone for help? Can I ask someone to take me to the doctor, to the hospital, to help me if I am sick or become disabled? Those things matter. And that allows you to live longer if you have those kinds of connections to lean on. See, most of us who care about health spend a lot of time focusing on our physical bodies. We think about protein intake, which I know I push. We think about exercise, which I push. We think about sleep and supplements and lab work, which is all normal. I still think we should do those things. Don't get me wrong. But what if we overlooked one of the most important aspects of health? What if relationships aren't just good for our emotional well-being? What if they're actual legitimate medicine? See, when you think about it, it makes a lot of sense. Human beings were never designed to live in isolation. Heck, even a recent podcast I personally listened to talked about how every time you eat, you should be around people with no screen in front of you, as it enhances your connection. It has more oxytocin release. It literally makes our internal body and brain happier. For most of human history, survival depended on that community. We evolved in tribes. We evolved in families. We evolved in groups where people depended on one another. Today, however, many of us are experiencing something completely different. We're more connected technologically than ever before. That's how you're listening to me now. We can text anyone instantly, and we can see what hundreds of people are doing on social media. We can communicate across the world in a matter of seconds. Yet many people profoundly feel alone. And loneliness isn't just an emotional issue, it's a health issue. When we're isolated, stress tends to increase and our bodies remain in a heightened state of vigilance. Everyone feels heavier when we're carrying it alone. Sorry, everything feels heavier when we're carrying it alone. But when we have people around us who support us and encourage us and genuinely care about us, life's challenges become so much more manageable. Our stress response changes, our resilience improves, and over time, that can have a significant impact on our overall health. See, peer pressure works both ways. It makes us do bad things if we're around people who are making bad decisions, and it helps us make good decisions if we're around people who are going to make those good decisions. If you want to start running more, maybe you should join a run club. If you're here in Wichita, Run 316 is pretty freaking awesome. And there are a lot of people who are running for the first time ever or setting PRs because of that. This is where technology actually can be quite helpful because things like Instagram and Strava can connect people and help you take those steps forward. This is why I benefit from going to a gym where there is class workouts. Doing the workout with people hold me accountable. Trying to do it on my own makes me bail. Here's the question I want to leave you with. How much time do you spend investing in your relationships compared to how much time you spend investing in your physical health? Many of us can tell you exactly how many steps we walked today, how many grams of protein we consumed, what supplements we took this morning, but when was the last time we intentionally invested in a relationship or a friendship? When was the last time we called someone just to check on them? Truly check on them. Call them, ask questions, and just listen. When was the last time we sat across from another human being and had a meaningful conversation with no distractions? No phone on the table, no phone between us, the phone being in the other room. If this research is right, which it just simply is, those things aren't separate from health. They are your health. So the challenge I have for you this week is to call someone you've been meaning to call. Schedule coffee with a friend. Actually, there's a person that comes to mind. I was listening to Jacob O'Connor's podcast. It was called Real Conversations at the time and is now called Built for More. He was interviewing Spencer with SB Mowing, and they were talking about how essentially obsessed they are with their work, which is amazing. But Jacob O'Connor noticed that he was always having business meetings with his best friend, John. That's all they ever talked about. And when he noticed this, he actually intentionally stopped and they scheduled a coffee date. One that they're not allowed to converse over business. It is just to catch up as friends. See, this time is important. And I think this generation, meaning the millennials, we're observing that. We're noticing that we're not willing to trade work for time with our friends anymore. And I think that will pay off. Continuing on with the challenges that I have for you. Schedule coffee with a friend. Call someone you've been meaning to call. Have dinner with family with no phones at the table. Tell someone how important they are to you. Because maybe the most powerful longevity intervention isn't something you order online, but it's someone you connect with or reconnect with. I hope this is helpful for you. If you enjoyed it, please share it to some sort of social media, tag me in it, and I will share it back. Maybe even take a picture of you doing something to build a relationship with the loved one around you and tag me. I would love to see it. Thank you for joining me on another episode of Heal Without Harm. And if you found this helpful, like I said, please share it or share it with someone you care about. Until next time, I hope you learned how to heal without harm. We'll see you.